everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew, and we are in episode 7 of Breaking into Cyber. And I'm very excited to pull away Betta, who's actually right now about to attend the WESIS conference, I believe in Texas this week, who's taken some gracious part of her time to chat on the channel with us. And we're gonna really kind of dive into some cool aspects of penetration testing, and I think something that's really gonna intrigue everyone in kind of going into AI hacking. So to introduce Betta Delsordo began her cybersecurity at the age of 13, where she started teaching herself to code. This grew into freelance web development work for small businesses in Montana, where she soon realized she needed to know more about application security to keep her clients safe. Betta received an ESET Woman in Cybersecurity Scholarship in 2018, which launched her path on success in the field. After completing a master's in cybersecurity at Georgia Tech and obtaining certifications such as GPen, Betta is now working in an application security pen tester or an ethical hacker for OnDefend. Her areas of expertise include application security, security code review, cloud security, and AI hacking. Betta is very involved in the cybersecurity community and organizations that support women in technology. She has been a mentor for over 9 years with Technovation, an international girl coding program, and is an organizer and speaker for organizations promoting diversity in technology, including RTC, WESIS, WISP, and WSC. Betta, so glad to have you on the channel. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Is it ever kind of odd, and like obviously you've been to some presentations and courses before where you've gotten to do some talks, to include the one you're doing this week, and you get to hear that kind of like speaker bio that gets read, and it's just like, what are your thoughts when you get to hear that every single time, and as it continues to grow?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've been doing this for quite a while, since I was 13, and I never really thought about what it would mean to other people. It was more just like, I'm going to do these things that I find interesting. And so it's cool to hear that my story's been like inspiring to other people. And I would do a lot of volunteering and mentoring for younger girls. So to tell them like, hey, I started when I was your age too, like you can do it. It's fun.
No, that's awesome. And it's important. And as this series kind of that I'm running on my channel is breaking into cyber, that's exactly what we're going to get to talk about tonight, and kind of go into being a mentor and even being a mentee and how to find a mentor. So first question I usually like to ask everybody that kind of is always a little bit different of that past experiences is obviously you started at the sharp age of 13 when it came into cybersecurity, but what made you realize that this was the career choice for you? Was there a specific maybe moment or experience where you kind of wanted to dedicate yourself to this kind of field?
Yeah, I started more on just teaching myself to code. I thought it was cool, interesting thing. It was just kind of a weird hobby, and it grew into building these websites there was a group of women entrepreneurs in my hometown in Montana, and they all wanted help on their websites. And I was this teenager that knew how to code, and they're like, hey, she can help you. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I think for me, the defining moment that like when I moved from being a web developer into cybersecurity was when I really started I started looking things up about like how to build good websites. And one of the things always in there was security. I was like, oh no, I haven't been thinking about this at all. And
They can
then I
deface my whole page. Oh no.
yeah, I know. I was like, oh no. And I was like, then I started reading these things, going down these rabbit holes and being like, oh my God, like if I don't do this right, like my clients, all their data, whatever, this is going to be terrible. And so it was this moment where I suddenly had to like reconsider everything that I'd done. And once you go that route and you start thinking about how to attack stuff, you can't go back to building because it just takes so long to think about like, oh, what about this? What about this? And I was able to intern with a pen testing firm, and I got into a lot of web hacking that way because I knew the holes that I had left in sites. Like when I didn't want to finish something, I was like, oh, this will be fine. Like I know how to find those, in websites that other people's built. So I think that was kind of my big turning point.
See, and that's important to think. Like one thing that a lot of people I don't think understand when it comes to cybersecurity is like half of the time it's just us being curious. Hey, I wonder if this would happen. I wonder if this would work. I wonder if I type in / like robots.txt at the end of this URL, if anything's going to pop up.
Yeah.
And I think with, like you said, with your background of building websites, like 100% when it comes to web application testing, it's like, hey, I used to build websites. So I know, and now knowing all the information you know now, when it comes to like going to a small mom and pop shop or any kind of pro bono work, even when it comes to like, hey, can you check our site? Yeah, of course. And they give you that background of like, yep, we paid this 18-year-old that said they built us a free site for $50. And you're like, cool, like, let's see what I can find. Oh no, there's 15 back doors that this person can just go back into all your data, store all your stuff. And it's probably that aspect of, and not intentionally, probably that 18-year-old or younger person that's maybe just trying to do his own thing, create websites, make things, create his own business, and like, yep, I'm a website designer. But exactly that question, like, hey, are they thinking about security? Do they know about security? I mean, is that even being implemented? And the short answer is probably not, unless they're self-taught, they understand that kind of stuff. But that's actually, like you said, a great way to kind of like self-taught and kind of learn. I
Mhm.
guess my question, if you remember, what was the coding platform, or what was maybe the way you were learning and teaching yourself how to code?
Yeah, I was using Code Academy, and at the time, I think it was one of the better like online learning platforms out there. Nowadays, I've gone back and looked at it, and they kind of have a paywall around a lot of stuff. So
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd recommend it as much. These days, I just tell people go on YouTube and like talk to ChatGPT and like practice in like a little ChatGPT editor. Like if you're a super beginner and you don't know what you're doing, like that's a great way to start. Or there's just like online like Python editors or JavaScript editors. I think that's kind of what I tell people to do. But yeah, I learned on Code Academy, and then I started a lot of my web security stuff was from the Portswigger Web Security Academy, like just a lot of Burp Suite stuff. So it's always
nice.
some of my favorites.
Do
Yeah.
you, do you use VS Code when you're like on your personal computer at all, or even at work when it comes to like writing up scripts? And like, even obviously, there's a lot of plugins you can get for VS Code. That's even what I use for some of my stuff for work and just kind of freelancing if I want to mess around with stuff.
Yeah, VS Code, but also it was interesting working with like small businesses, and I worked with a few like campus organizations when I was starting out, and I would just kind of use whatever they had. So there'd be all kinds of range of different platforms, things that were very outdated, things that I could pick what I wanted, and so I'm not tied down to any particular tool these days.
And that's probably the best way to do it. Like obviously, like you said,
Yeah.
when it comes to penetration testing and doing that kind of work, you never know what
Mhm.
kind of website or what kind of work you're going to jump into, what tools they
Yeah.
use, what security tools they're using, what how or something was built, the information you're going to get before
Yeah.
and then even during that thing. It might be like a, hey, all we get is this IP and that's what the test is, or compared to, hey, we're
Mhm.
going to do this
Just have to
whole, yeah,
start.
and that's exactly that. Or it could even like doing like a white, I think it's like white hat hacking, or like where it's like,
White
hey,
box? Yeah.
yes. So it's like more or less like you're gonna get like a little bit more information to get inside the organization to, hey, like this is a very check the box, like, hey, we want you to check this, this, and that's it. So
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of source code analysis in kind of my later jobs because I come from a coding background. I realized actually a lot of penetration testers don't know how to code, or don't come from a coding background, and that's like one of my stronger areas. So being able to like look through code and find like are people just like pasting in garbage code from like Stack Overflow, and I can tell because like if someone has like their comments in there, I'm like and interesting things like that. A lot of times the comments will be like, I saw this had a security vulnerability to do fix this. And I'm like, thank you. Did my
like,
job for me.
I will check that for you. Thank you so much for
Yes.
commenting this.
Yeah. Or, just stuff like people will add in like test function something something, or like demo for whatever, and then they never take out some like little demo thing. That's super common. Or you can see where they've commented out like things like hard coded creds that were in a comment block. It's very interesting stuff like that.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Do you know when it comes to like out of I know, like, I think you mentioned like the top three things that you kind of are specializing in. Which one would you say takes the longest when it comes to when you're doing that pen test? And I know that might be a hard answer question to ask, because like it's obviously going to depend on every environment and such. But do you find yourself having more ease with one than rather than the other?
That's a good question. I think in terms of like longest, it could be like the length of the engagements, or like how quickly I do it, or like what's my favorite.
Okay,
I
I'd
think
say I'd say the second portion of it. Like, so if they say, hey,
yeah.
if you had to choose between, if you had to do like application security, secure code review, or AI hacking, and they said, hey, that's your only job during this 2 week pen test, which one of those three would you probably like want to say,
Hmm.
hey, I want to do this one. I'd rather do this one. Like, let me do this.
Well, that's a hard question because I like all of them, and ideally, I like the tests that have all of them. So I've done ones where like it's an AI application in the cloud, and I get the source code, and I like those.
Ooh,
I
okay.
like I really like white box where I can see all the components. So like I can like do some burp stuff on the API endpoints and be like, huh, this is weird. I'm getting this weird error, and then I can go back and look in the code and say like, oh, they've defined like these different error codes, but this means something's going weird with the database, and then I can go like jump over there and like I like being able to like follow the chain of some error that I'm seeing. And then really that gives me more actionable advice for the developers to be like, oh, look, I was able to follow this whole path, and I could see on the inside where you forgot to configure this thing. I think that for me is like, I like to see the whole picture.
Yeah, you kind of get to like follow the rabbit hole and just kind of
Yeah.
see the whole path toward the end. No, that's
Hmm.
actually really fun. That sounds exciting.
Yeah. That's
Would
my favorite. Yeah.
That's fair. Do you know, or do you think there's a point in your career that stands out? Was like your most defining moment, or maybe something that imposter syndrome is the word of choice? A lot of people say of like, hey,
Mm.
is there anything that took off that imposter syndrome, or even a instance that maybe uh, gave you imposter syndrome? I know the story I like to
Mm.
share, which I'm actually submitting a few talks for. It is the day I DOSed DMV, and it's a funny story. It's a long story short is make sure while you're reviewing phishing emails before you set into a block in place, do a little bit more diving. It was my first job. It was something that I thought looked malicious. I went
Uh-oh.
ahead with my intern. My other funny part of the story is I always blame the intern.
Oh
So
no.
I didn't, but it was just he's like, I'll take the blame from this man. I'm like, no, man, we both did this, but I'll
Oh
make sure I share
shoot.
your part. Long story short, is we blocked an application that was a legitimate tool that the DMV used, and they
Oh
couldn't pretty
dear.
much use that for a day and a half. Luckily,
Oh
my
dear.
SOC manager was super cool. The CISO over at the DMV was super cool, and it was a great learning experience. Definitely gave me some imposter syndrome, and it took a month or so to kind of get myself back out of that rut. But we all kind of have those stories, and we all maybe have a time that was really difficult for us. But then
Mm.
there's that shining moment that mine is when I was working a cybersecurity ransomware incident where we were able to find crypto miners, and I was able to find it, write up the report, get the environment we're in back to a safe place, and then I got to brief that whole thing back to my boss. He's like, "Hey man, good job," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I'm cybering. I'm in here. I'm doing it."
Oh my gosh.
So, but yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love the intern thing. Blame the intern. I mean, I think that's why you need interns though, because interns are going to think about things differently. Like maybe the DMV needs to have a response plan for when they get a tool blocked. Like I think interns find the
yeah,
cool stuff.
it's a fun ploy in my talk, and it's like here's your
Yeah.
multiple choice questions. What should we have done? A, blame the intern. B, blame the intern. C, don't blame the intern. D, talk to the SOC manager immediately. If you're
I
thinking A
like
and B, you're horrible people, but you're not half bad. You're gonna be great managers one day. I'm like the real answer. So it's a funny story. I think
that.
that I'll
Mhm.
eventually be talking to more on people. But yeah,
Oh,
it's quite a good
nice.
icebreaker.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's interesting you bring up imposter syndrome because I get asked this a lot. And I don't have imposter syndrome. I think sometimes as a
Awesome.
woman, people just like assume that you're gonna feel like, oh no, I don't belong. And like I'm like, I love what I do. And I think like I've just always been doing what I wanted and I've been in spaces where I knew I was qualified. And I think sometimes people feel imposter syndrome when they compare themselves to like people that are more senior than them. Like if you're an intern, obviously you're not as good as someone who's like a senior pen tester, but like don't compare yourself to them. I think for me, I'm always just being like, I'm good for my level that I'm at. And then eventually I'm going to get overqualified for this level and I'm going to be ready for the next level. And like, it's just kind of how I like approach growth. But I think in terms of like defining moments, I think I did have an intern moment when I was at my first like pen testing internship. A few things like they didn't really like give me a lot to do at first because as an intern they're like, well, she's just gonna kind of like watch. So I didn't really have a lot to do, and I was just sitting around. I was like grinding through all of the Portsware Web Security Academy labs. I think I finished all of the apprentice and practitioner ones. And I kind of just casually dropped that. I was like, okay, I finished these. And they're like, wait, you did all of them? And I was like, yeah, I didn't have anything to do. And
What
they're
else
like,
do
all
you
right,
want me
put
to
this girl
do?
on
It's
some pen
like
tests. Yeah. So they just started throwing me on like pen tests. And I was doing really well. And they were like, wow, that's amazing. And so that was fun for me. And I didn't realize like, when you're doing those labs, before you've been on an actual test, you're like, I bet that this isn't anything at all like what I'm gonna see, like, but it's gonna be so much harder than this. And then when I got actually on a test, I was like, actually, like, some of this basic stuff that I was learning in the first few lessons, like, is working. And it's kind of like a weird realization when you realize, like, yes, there are really hard attacks out there, but also sometimes like the basic stuff works, and you're just like, I don't
it
know, that's crazy.
it's so funny. So two things about what you just said on that answer is one,
Mhm.
I agree with you. You should never try to compare yourself to that next person up. And like
Yeah.
you definitely need to have a lot of I call it self-investing and like that like just like
Mhm.
you have to be confident half the battles is having the confidence to one if you mess up, just own up to it and fix the mistake. And then two, like if you know something and you can be the answer, all because you're the most junior person in a room. Like the interns I worked with at the state, they were
Mhm.
fantastic. They were coding masterminds. They had great analysis. They were writing up scripts and stuff and automating processes for us. And I was bummed to lose them. I myself am not a strong coder. I know enough to like read through alerts and go through the detections on. I'm more of a blue hat kind of guy for the deco portion
Mm.
when it comes to response and IR. But it's just like having that other side of the field kind of come in and actually get to like, hey, this is Java or this is Python or this is what's actually happening. This is what they're trying to do with this script. It's that nice to have that piece of information. And yeah, you should never compare
Mhm.
yourself and have that confidence going into it. Second, just like you said, trying the most basic things first sometimes is not crazy. So like being a police officer, right? We'd go to
Mhm.
specific calls and stuff, for like maybe like a break-in or something. It's like, hey, like we need to kick the door. And I'm like, well, hold on. Let's see if the door's unlocked. And
That's
it's
a great
like,
idea.
it's funny.
Right?
It's funny to say that, right? But then it's like you go back to even like working like IR responses or doing pen tests, and it's like, oh, we have to try this super MS Venom
Mhm.
or Metasploit. I'm like, whoa. Let's just see if we can like pivot to /admin and see if password's admin. Hey, we're in. And it's just like, there's nothing wrong with
That's
trying.
crazy.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong trying your basic applications and processes first before moving into those more complicated processes. Which, yes, I think when it comes to difficulty and such, as you're going through your career, you're going to have those different levels of understanding and different levels of, well, I know how to do this, but I'm learning how to do that. And I think that's one thing when it
Mhm.
comes to having the mentors and trainees to work with is huge on like, hey, Betta, can I sit with you while you're doing this next kind of level? I've been trying it, but I'm not
Mhm.
the greatest with it. And that's the type of training I think that people can get so much learning out of too when it comes to working with coworkers or mentoring or being an intern and asking those questions. Because same thing when we've had interns, the first week is, hey man, you're on the security mailbox and you're just looking for spam. And that's how we kind of feel them out. It's like, hey, look, like we want you to go through just basic phishing emails and try
Mhm.
not to block and DOS a organization. But just like let's just see how much they know. Like maybe they're just into
Yeah.
their career, maybe they're just starting in college, but they got this internship. Like I don't know their level, and I need to kind of see one how hungry they're going to be, and as
Mhm.
yourself, obviously, like well, I completed all the training. Can I now come play with the big dogs? Yeah, throw in a
Yeah.
pen test. Wow, she knows what she's doing. Yeah, guys, I
Right.
know. As you're sitting there tacking away, like, all right, guys, I'm root
Yeah. Yeah.
next. So
Yeah, that's something I always tell people is like take advantage of downtime. That's I've gotten so upskilled in just like, oh no, I have a few days between my next assessment. Like, I know it's nice you could go like on YouTube or something and just zone out, but like you could get those labs done that you've been wanting to do and just like the amount of growth sometimes I'll get in just like a few days where I have some downtime, it's like enormous. That's always my biggest tip for people too.
no, definitely. Like it's someone mentioned to me too. Like you take a 30-day span and like, hey, start doing. If you're bad at Nmap, do
Mm-hmm.
Nmap for 30 days. Find rooms on Try Hack Me, do Hack the Box, Phone Hub, and just write out and then document like the Nmap scans you run. There's so many cheat sheets and stuff you can now grab these days too. Like Bailey Marshall has one I think on her security rec site too that she and there's
Ooh.
just hacking and all these other ones you can go to that you can just find all that stuff, but you start the repetition. Like I'm very much a hands-on learner. So if I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn something, it's fingers on keys, doing the repetition, running the commands, and that's what's going to get me better at learning that process. And just like you said, downtime's great, right? And I could doom scroll all day. I love doom scrolling.
Yeah.
YouTube, Telegram, Instagram, X, and it's just like, oh, cool, that's going on, or oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, that's a new CVE that I didn't know about yet. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, but you can also pivot that and go learn a new skill. Jump on a room.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, download a Vuln Hub box and try to write up a mock pen test if you're trying to get into penetration testing.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Using your time wisely.
So, next question I have for you would be the misconceptions about cybersecurity. So, in your
Mhm.
career and when you think about it, what are for those like maybe just starting out that you'd like to maybe have them understand? Like, I always like the people like you're going to make mistakes. If it's your first job, it's your first internship, misconception, the first mistake you make, you're not going to get fired. The second one, you're not going to get fired. The third, you're not going to get fired. The fourth, you're not going to get fired. Own up to it, ask questions, and just try not to make it again. That's the issue when there's that repetition where you make the same mistake 10 times. Then you might have a conversation like, hey man, so this happened 10 times in a row. Have you documented it? Have you written it down? Is it and you know what I'm talking about with the chuckle, I hope. So
Mhm.
I'm like, excellent. She knows what I mean.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great one. And I think especially sometimes you'll think you made a mistake, but you've actually just kind of found a weakness in like your team's process or something. Like I've had times where I'm like, someone was like, go set up this phishing server, and the documentation was like 10 years old, and I was like,
Ugh, yeah.
okay. And then like I forgot to, there was something in there I was supposed to like block the Google crawler, and it got blacklisted before we could use it. And I was like, oh shoot. I was like, this is terrible. But they're like, oh, we didn't even write that down, and the one person who knew that doesn't work here anymore. So like I think sometimes, a lot of times, those mistakes you'll make are like either you just haven't done it and people didn't provide enough training, or maybe you should do some of your own training too. But usually, I just find it's almost like lack of documentation is kind of rampant within
Yes.
all security teams. It's just kind of unfortunate. So if you find something, you find a problem, make sure you write it
You,
down for other people.
viewer, we're pointing at you. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
No,
Like that is so many times, like the internal documentation for teams will be like so out, and they'll have like this random script someone made and it's broken and no one knows how to fix it. And like, be the person to fix it, step up and do it. It's a big
yeah,
deal.
it
But
doesn't.
I think, oh
100%.
yeah, go ahead.
No, no, keep going, keep going. You're on a roll. Keep going.
Yeah. I think the thing that I do several talks on this of like people, getting started in cybersecurity, I get asked a lot of the same questions. And I think one of the biggest things that I see is people think it's something you can just like watch a couple YouTube videos or do a couple month boot camp and then like, boom, you're a hacker. And I just try to like let people know realistically, it takes most people probably 2 to 3 years of concerted studying from the time you're like, I want to work in cybersecurity,
Yep.
to like finding your niche, getting good at it, getting good enough to get paid at it, paid for something, and then networking, being able to put yourself out there. It's a long road. It's
Very.
unfortunately, it's not something like if you graduated and you're like, oh no, I don't have a job, I need to find a job next month, or like I just got fired, I'm trying to change careers. Fortunately, it's not something you can just like pivot
Yeah.
instantly into.
No,
So
100% right. It took me about a
yeah.
year to get into cybersecurity. So I've been lucky to leverage the military during my transition
Nice.
from law
Yeah.
enforcement to my first job at the state. It was a
Mhm.
mix between, so I had like, as any law enforcement officer, I got my degree in criminal justice with a certificate in Homeland Security. That's the go-to
Mhm.
cop certification or education. But then at my time, I switched over to an MOS, part of a cyber protection team, as an all-source analyst. So think of it like a CTIA, like a cyber threat intelligence intel analyst.
Mm.
So I started to really learn about MITRE attack, building out threat models, Diamond model, MITRE kill chain, and or Lockheed Martin kill chain. And I'm like, man, this is kind of cool. And then I'd go and do IR responses with my unit. And it's like, hey, man, we're in this area. We think it's going to be this APT. We need you to build all their TTPs for us, see why they'd be attacking this region, and then give us a brief on it. I'm like, okay, cool. And I loved it. And I'm like, man, this is really cool work. And so I began to work on my master's in cybersecurity, started studying for my Security Plus, which used to be the gateway cert into cybersecurity, which we'll have another quick question on that of why I think that's now CYSA, but bear with me on that. And after I got my master's in my Security Plus, I then began to kind of network. And I was blessed to have folks in my cyber protection team that I could talk to, ask for mentorship. Hey, should I go down this path? What should I do? Oh, jump on Try Hack Me, jump on Hack the Box. Start understanding what a SIM-SOAR is, what's an EDR, how to do log analysis, what's a phishing email, how do you investigate it and look at the header information. And then with that, a mixture of that, hard work, certification, getting a higher education, and then networking, I was able to get an interview, which then, all because getting the interview doesn't mean you get the job. Sometimes you can get referred, or someone's like, oh, can you refer me to this job? Yeah, I can maybe get you to the interview, but it's still your job to sell yourself to the hiring manager of why you're the best candidate. And luckily enough, the state thought I was a great candidate for their senior all-source analyst, senior information security analyst position, which I jokingly said they could change it to junior information security analyst, because I'm like, hey, this is my first job. Like, oh, don't worry, the titles are just for HR purposes. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
cool,
nice.
yeah, sweet, all right. But
Yeah.
that's what got me in the door. But yeah, it took about a year and some change to make that full transition when I first said, hey, I'm going to get into cybersecurity. And just like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people think like,
Mhm.
I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to get Sec Plus and CYSA, and I'm going to go make six figures. It happens. There's that small 1%, 2% that every now and then there's a diamond in the rough and you get picked up and you get that chance. But there's also, as many people have seen, and I'm sure with the mentorship that you give and people asking, I've applied to 100 positions and I can't get through. And
Yeah.
it's hard. You're going up against some people that got laid off. Microsoft had huge layoffs this year. Google,
All of them. Yeah.
Meta, and I mean, like, you have folks that have like 5+ years of back end DevSecOps degree information and certifications, and like that's who you're competing with for this basic senior engineer position or a senior security analyst position where it's like they're looking for a junior, but then those folks apply because they need work, and now you just got completely like kind of busted out and beat out because you can't compete with someone that's has that on the job training.
Mhm. Totally. What I've been telling people to do right now is like think about what you can do while you're studying, like having those alternate kind of career paths. Like it could be something as simple as working in tech support or teaching like high school computer science or like working at a public library where you know work on the computers or something. And like people don't want like those jobs aren't super glamorous, especially if you have a bachelor's degree. It sometimes feels like you're overqualified, but just
Yeah.
the way the job market is at the moment, if you can just do something that pays the bills and say like you're doing something with cybersecurity, because in all those you're going to have to deal with people downloading malware and
Yep.
like teaching people basic stuff, like that is a real skill. And then while you're doing that, studying and studying and networking and going to meetups and those kinds of things, as opposed to just like I do see people that will just like not work and then just like spend their savings on like, all right, it's going to work out, I'm just going to keep applying. I think one of the best things you can do is like stop applying for jobs and just spend all that time studying. Like if you're just spending all your like if you spend like 2 hours a day just applying for jobs and you're not getting anywhere, I think it's time to like take a step back and like, all right, what do I need to do to actually be like so good that they have to hire me? And
Self-invest is what thing I say.
yeah,
I'm like, hey, if you've done 50 interview or if you've done 50 applications in the last 2 months and you've only interviewed twice or three times and you still keep getting beat out, okay, it's time to take a step back,
mm-hmm,
self-invest, work on a new certification, work on a new skill, put
mm-hmm,
work on something new that you can update your resume on. That you know what, I'm going to work on a GitHub repository. I'm going to work on a Stack Overflow repository. I'm going to build out a cool GUI that searches for
mm-hmm.
known IPs in a scanner. I'm going to
Yeah,
right? I'm going to build a
totally.
website and then show off my resume and other skills I've done on it. And by doing that, one, you're showing recruiters and other organizations that, hey, I know you skipped over me, but this is what you missed out on. And then
Mm-hmm.
two, if something back comes around, like, hey, you know what? Andrew, we didn't get him the first round, but hey, we just got the second role. He's really been active ever since, and he's got new training done. He's bragging about it on LinkedIn. He built out this tool. We pulled it on his GitHub, and I think people underestimate the soft skills and those like that self-investing that can really go a long way if like you're getting
Mhm.
turned down by those applications and those kind of roles.
Totally, yeah. And I think one thing I also tell people is instead of doing 50 things one time, do one thing 50 times.
Yes.
Like if you had a website where you analyzed 50 samples of malware, you go apply for that malware analysis position, they'd be like, wow, amazing. If you go apply for that malware analysis position, you're like, well, I did this one time.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to hire you to do that. They're going to be like really good at it. So you have to pick a specialization. And I know that like when I was starting out, I was like, oh, I want to learn everything. I want to
Yeah.
learn about IR and pen testing and like the law, but like you really, especially when you're starting out, have to pick that like one thing to get good enough to get paid at it,
Yeah,
paid
for
for
sure.
it. Yeah, so I was trying to help people to like do something over and over and get build a showcase of that thing.
Yeah, for sure. I had to quickly yell. I think my wife's like pounding on my door, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm on a video call. This is important. I'm a YouTuber." So,
There you go.
so I guess another question that kind of bleeds into it. So when it comes
Mhm.
to, so I used to say that Security Plus was the cert you needed to kind of break into cyber with. Maybe I'd say 4 or 5 years ago. I'd now say that that's kind of moved up to CYSA. When you talk to people that are looking for like the certification route compared to the experience route, I'm give take on it, and I say that because like I've done the CompTIA pathway to get all the way up to my Security X, and so it's just like I've gone the cert way, which is great, and like the knowledge is there. It's an ABCD question test for
Mhm.
simulations compared to hands-on experience. What are you kind of giving out when it comes to mentorship or when people ask like, hey, should I get certifications or should I try to like learn the skills?
I think, yeah, it's interesting because yeah, I think like maybe 5 years ago, Security Plus could get you a job, but it doesn't now.
Yeah.
And I see even ones that are below that, like the CC, like certified in cybersecurity or Google cybersecurity, that keep getting pushed around. Unfortunately, those don't really mean anything because they're
Yeah.
just like they're so introductory. I don't think there's a reason not to. Like a lot of times, people get free vouchers. Like go for that totally. But I think, unfortunately, the only certifications that matter are the ones that you see on job descriptions because
Hmm.
usually it's recruiters that don't know anything. Like they're just going to look
Oh
at
my
the four
gosh.
letters that are there. And it's not their job to know. Like there's so many certifications, they're recruiting for so many different disciplines. But what I tell people is go like search for the job title that you want, like penetration tester, security analyst, and look at the ones that are listed there over and over again. Make a list, like look at 20 different job descriptions you're going to see like a few ones pop up and over again. They may not be the best certifications. They may not be the, most well regarded among like actual security professionals, but like that's the point of them, is to kind of get you out of the resume pile.
Yeah.
So I tell people to get like at least one of those. It's going to be different on every discipline, but then you kind of have to start working towards like some of those higher level ones. I just got the G Pen. That's kind of like one of those big.
Congrats. Yep.
Thank
Very good
you.
one to
Yeah,
get.
I was lucky to get like a scholarship to cover that. It's very expensive and not reachable for most people, but um, yeah, sometimes you have to work towards like one of those big like stamp of approval, like the OCP is one. I
Yep.
have a voucher for that. I'm trying to
Oh, heck yeah.
do.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hopefully getting on that this summer or fall.
Heck yeah.
And for some people, that's like the CISSP, but those are not entry level certs. But that's why I tell people is like get one of those entry level ones, just so that like people take you seriously, that like you are studying, and to say like I do have a little bit of experience. But if you're trying to like get out of the resume pile and you don't have any network, you might have to go for one of those like bigger level ones.
I call them the easy wins. Like, so
Yeah.
I tell a lot of people like trying to get into the industry. I'm like, hey, Microsoft has a bunch of awesome 900 level certifications.
Yeah. Cloud stuff's good.
Usually with like school email accounts, it's like $50. And if it's not
Nice.
$50,
Yeah.
it's like I think $100 like for like your
Yeah.
Azure 900,
Mhm.
Microsoft Fundamentals, your SC 900, DP Data 900, and compared to like $50 or $100 compared to like even
Mhm.
CompTIAs are about like I think 250 to
Yeah.
400. We then jump up to like CSSPs, which are now like the 800 to 900 range. You then jump up to SANS, where if you're just doing the whole course, $10,000
So
or
expensive,
a
I know.
thousand, yeah, or $1,000 for just the test. And when you
Mhm.
can't really take the test blatantly without the books and like a good index, but some people can and do. God bless.
Mhm.
Can't believe you can do it. Give me your Brian. But I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's exactly like you said. I mean, I think industries are just moving up, and as adversaries getting more complex, and AI is getting integrated, and there's more and more things happening within across all types of environments when it comes to security. There's just so much now more that you have to know. And as much as Security Plus is still that good gateway in, I feel CYSA is more or less what people are wanting when it comes to the blue team side of doing security compared to being like a red team pen tester. Because if you're trying to go in like I'm gonna be a security analyst, go work in a SOC and work detections and do instant response, like that's great. Like the security aspect of that would be great for you, but I would even say some security plus aspects you're going to learn, like they're not going to cover that when you get into a SOC. Like I've never seen this before, which is great
Yeah.
because that's what on the job training is for. But yeah, 100%. I think that there's just a lot more, and just like you said, whatever that company's looking for, if that's the goal
Yeah.
job you're wanting, that's what you should be looking at when it
Mhm.
comes to certifications.
Totally. And I think I also would second like cloud stuff. Like AWS also has really affordable ones, and they're actually very well regarded and not as difficult as people like think. Like the introductory, like they have an AI one and cloud practitioner
Yep.
are actually very easy, only like 50 or $100. And I think most people could do them like just studying for like a few weekends. They're usually just like memorizing all the names of all the services. It's not like
Yep. Yeah.
anything, but like it stands out because there are a lot of like that's kind of will get you ahead of those like people that've been in the industry for maybe 10 years and haven't learned cloud yet.
Yep.
If you're ahead of the curve and you are learning cloud and AI, that's kind of how you can like get in there above people maybe.
100%. Well, I got two more questions. I know they're going to probably bleed
Mhm.
into this. I want to get,
Yeah.
we're doing so great, but I'm like, man, I don't want to keep you too long. Because
Mhm.
you have a conference to do this week, and you're actually presenting at that
Yes,
conference,
I
correct?
am. Yeah.
Where can they,
That's
yeah, where can they find you, and what's the conference?
that's the WESIS conference, Women in Cybersecurity. So WESIS is like a large organization for supporting women in cyber around the world, but they have an annual conference this year. It's in Dallas. And I'm doing a presentation called Hacking AI, Easy as Pie.
Oh, clever. I
So
like it.
yeah, it's going to be fun. It's like an intro to AI hacking, and it's been a lot of excitement. I've already have like 150 people registered, which I
Oh
don't
my
think that'll
gosh,
fit
awesome.
in the room, but people are excited about it. And I've been doing like some little similar talks to kind of lead up to that. And yeah, I'm really excited.
Oh, that's
And,
awesome.
yeah.
That actually bleeds into our next question perfectly.
Mhm.
AI hacking. What and
Yeah.
how do you do it? And how does one look into learning and training to get into this type of penetration testing when it comes to those large data lakes and large data models and kind of learning how to get AI to, in a sense, be malicious for you?
Hmm. So that's kind of one of my favorite topics at the moment, as you can tell. And I think it's what I would tell people first is like, have you ever used ChatGPT and you get the pop up that says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't talk about that," or "This is copyrighted," or "This is malicious. If you've done that, like you've already been doing like the AI hacking. And so what I would do is just practice first. How many times can you get that little pop up to say like, "Ooh, you're hitting some kind of guardrail"? That's kind of where I'd tell people to start. But then there's some really fun CTFs out there. We were talking about earlier that you had done Gandalf, which is a very
Gandalf.
popular.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like a fun one to start that I always tell people about. It's like a little wizard that gets smarter and smarter each time. You have to like give it a prompt to get the secret password. And the last level definitely takes like a little. You have to kind of put all the pieces together. So that's a fun one. But there's also one called Prompt Airlines that I like.
Prompt
Uh,
airlines.
yeah, you have to kind of like forge an ID card and like trick it into giving you a discount code to get like a free flight. So that one's kind of
Ooh.
fun. Yeah, which I
Okay.
think they don't say this, but I feel like it was probably based on something real that maybe somebody had because I see this a lot of like all these websites now have this little chat bot pop up in the corner. It's like, hi, how can I help you? And like you can talk to those, get discount codes. Are they hooked up to stuff they're not supposed to? Like, can you delete your account? Can you delete someone else's account? Stuff
Ooh.
like that.
Sneaky.
So
That's cool.
yeah. So I love those. And there's another one. I'm forgetting the name. There's a few more that are like similar to Gandalf that are just less well known. Um, but then there also is the Web Security Academy also has a few AI ones that are like connected to an API. So that's actually more realistic of being able to query an API through an AI.
Okay.
So I've seen that in actual pen tests now where people have hooked up their like internal APIs to an AI and sometimes they'll have guardrails, but I've seen them like comment out the guardrails or things like that. So you don't know what's going on there. So if you get to that point where like you're ready to try stuff, you could go find bug bounties that have, in scope, like an AI chatbot that like pops up, see what you can do, see if you can get it to say offensive things. I've got things to crash, like denial of service. If you ask it like about the theory of relativity or like calculate like my interest on this loan or something, if there's not enough memory allocated there, it could crash or it could just rack up their cloud bill, things like that.
that's
Yeah,
that's funny.
yeah, which is also catastrophic. You don't want that. So, and reputation damage. They don't want it, someone to take like a screenshot of like their logo on there of their thing, like saying something offensive. So, those are all things you can look for.
So Hacker One and then Bug Crowd, I'm assuming, is maybe where you use your AI hacking for good when it comes to you bounty hunting.
I actually don't at the moment. I'm kind of maxed out with my current job, so I'm not doing
Fair.
like any side projects. But I do tell people if you're not getting like if you're in a pen test where you don't get those exposure to those AI stuff, you want to try that out. That's like a good route to go.
That's awesome. That is so funny.
Mhm.
Talk to me about the theory of relativity and then you get the
Oh
crash.
yeah,
That's so funny.
yeah. So that's actually a really interesting one of like, especially in kind of like demo or test environments, they'll have very little memory allocated to the AI, or they'll have, or sometimes they'll have too much allocated to it, so it can scale indefinitely and really rack up their cloud bill.
That's
So
so funny.
yeah, which is like they don't want that to happen. And so if you can get it to ask something that's like really computationally intensive, so asking about like, you know, compute like this crazy formula, like you can look up some kind of like unsolved math problems or something and like phrase it in a way where it thinks it has to do with whatever its main objective is, which is usually like helping you with something. You can start seeing like the loading just spinning and spinning, and then I've gotten it to come back with like 500 errors. Different stuff like that, which is very, very interesting.
That's so cool. And I guess
Yeah.
that actually leads us into our, I'd say, last question before I kind of throw in just like another kind of like more super freezy of like what you do when you relax. So pen testing reports are huge because obviously
Mhm.
when it comes to pen testing, most people don't think of like, oh man, like that's the funnest part and that's what the company needs. When in
Mhm.
actuality, the real thing that that company wants and needs is that pen testing report to see what they found, what vulnerabilities were found, and kind of like what next steps they need to do. What tricks have you learned for your time being a pen tester when it comes to that report writing? What tools have you used that maybe helped sharpen that skill?
Yeah. So it's interesting because at my last job, they had kind of a saying. They said, you get paid for the report and that's it. And it's kind of an interesting thought because really what the client gets is that report. If that's just like a piece of, paper, if it's, a web portal, that kind of thing, they do not know all the stuff that you did, all the cool little things you did if you don't put them in the report. And I think sometimes as pen testers we get like all caught up and they're like, oh, this is so fun and it makes sense to me, but at the end of the day, no one's going to care how cool something is if they don't understand what it is, if they don't understand the impact, they don't understand what to do about it. So for me, taking really good notes has been one of the most important things. So use different like note taking software. Depends on like if your company has like a preferred version, but I will take very good like screenshots and then documenting them. Some screenshotting software will let you like add notes to things. But just also knowing that you can't usually recreate things in certain scenarios. So
Yeah.
like stopping, I've had terrible things. When you like
Yeah.
something cool and you didn't screenshot it and you just have to
Oh, let me
like,
try that again. Oh, now it
yeah,
won't do
no,
it.
it
I'm like,
doesn't work.
they'll take my word, hopefully. And it's
Yeah,
just,
right. No, and it's like frustrating. So like really documenting as you go and then reporting as you go, which is also not so fun. But sometimes I'll forget. I was like, which API was that for? I don't know. And that can be a problem for your client when they are like, how do I fix this? And you're like, oh, I can't really remember which one, but it's like one of these. Like that's not what they want to hear. So
it's so
being very
funny.
organized.
It's so
Yeah.
funny because even on the blue team side, when it comes to like looking in and diving into an alert or detection or an event
Hmm.
that's going on, the report writing is just the same thing. I can get so into
Yeah.
something and be like
Yeah.
5 tabs in. I'm like, oh, I think this is like the I'm 3/4 of the way done, and I'm like, I'll
Yeah.
look at my documentation. I'm like, oh shit, I haven't even started like what I
Yeah.
initially did first, and when I did the pivot into here, and like what file path I am now, and what drive did I just jump into to find this file or this like process
Mhm.
running that shouldn't be, and I'm like, I need to backtrack. Or I'm like, okay, let me get some screenshots real quick. Okay, can I get back there? Then it'll take me just as long to get back to where I was just doing. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, I should have been grabbing the screen. Same thing, grab screenshots as
Mhm.
you go, right there. I've now learned to kind of write the report as I go, which has helped out
Yeah.
a ton more
So much
compared
better.
to, which comes with experience. Like you first get into your first role, you're just excited. You start
Yeah,
working the
you're like,
case. You're like,
deal with that
this
later.
is a false positive, not malicious. And it's like, put in your case notes. You're like, oh, I didn't even write anything. I was just making sure this wasn't bad. And I had to go all the way back, write everything you did. So
Mhm.
no, and that's super cool. And I think a lot of people take away the aspects of the cool part about cybersecurity is like, oh man, I get to throw the hoodie up, throw my fingers on keys, guys, I'm in. But then it's like, cool, now we need the report that happened on it. And I think some people don't think of that aspect. Like, hey, it's 5 minutes of fun, 50 minutes of paperwork on the how
Yeah,
fun was it and how did that happen. So
exactly.
no,
Yeah.
so cool. And uh, Betta, the last question I have for you is when you're not doing cyber stuff, what do you
Mhm.
do for fun? What do you do to
Yeah.
lower the hoodie, not get behind a computer maybe, or maybe you get behind a computer? I know I'm a gamer. But yeah, what do
Mm.
you like to do to kind of de-stress or kind of get away from the computer for a little
Mm.
bit?
Yeah, I am not a gamer actually, which I know is not really the norm in our
Mm.
industry, but I like to get away from the computer. When I am, I have spent so much time in school and work on the computer that like all my hobbies are as uncomputery as I can get. I'm from Montana, so I grew up doing country swing dancing, and I still
Oh,
love that
cool.
a lot. Yeah, I just moved to Montana or moved to DC about a year ago, but I have been able to find some kind of like country bars that still have that type of dancing and music. But I also I have a cat, so I love cuddling with my cat, cooking, baking, getting outside, reading. I'm on the 12th book of the Wheel of Time. Uh,
Awesome.
so there's like 15 books in the series, and it's slowly chipping away at that. So yeah. What about you? You said you like gaming, but anything else fun?
I will pretty much be. So I'm married, 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old and a
Mhm.
2-year-old. So most of the times
Yeah.
hang out with the family. I am a gamer still. So I think the game of choice right now is either Deadlock, which is like an Overwatch. If you've ever seen or played Overwatch or Marvel
Mhm.
Rivals, it's a line hero game. Look it up. You'll see what I mean when you see what it is. And then honestly, I'll still go like to the gym and stuff and just kind of work out,
Mhm.
de-stress. I like the bike. And then
Nice.
yeah, it's like ideally just kind of hanging out with the family, whatever they want to do for the weekend, and then this YouTube has been a fun kind of like this is kind of like now a
Yeah.
fun side project.
Fun.
Just like yourself, I've gotten to meet tons of cool people by doing this and networking. And I even remember talking to Tyler Ramsby. He's with Rhino Inc. as a pen tester. Some piece of advice that he gives us to his mentees is like, hey, make a YouTube channel and document what you're doing. It's another way
Mhm.
of like almost like if you want to be a web page designer, like create a website and show off your work. Same thing with
Mhm.
via YouTube's. And I know the hardest part about getting into YouTube is like turning on the camera, talking into a lens, and maybe trying to walk through the process you're doing. But I think
Mhm.
I've also even learned that by doing that for even some of like the admin of cyber rooms I've done or some of the CTF rooms I've done, or the capture the flag, like find root rooms with even like try hack me and stuff. I can kind of go back and say, okay, did I get that right? Did that make sense? Like if I were to have like my mom jump on this computer that's not tech savvy and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to go and get root on this box. I'm going to walk you through how to do it.
Right.
And it's just like that, like a walkthrough or a step by step. I think it goes a long way and it helps out a lot. So,
Totally. Yeah.
well, Betta,
So,
thank you so much for coming on the channel. This was so much fun. I
mhm.
hope you have a great time at WESIS and good luck on your presentation. Sounds like it's going to be an
Thank
amazing
you.
room. As a huge thank you for coming on the channel, I am going to send you a link to my Ginger Hacker Swag shop. So there's a plethora of cool things you can grab: hoodies, zippers, shot glasses, mouth pads, stickers. Grab something that you like. Treats on me for getting to spend about an hour of your night with me. And any last piece of advice to the viewers still watching that made it through that they're trying to get into cybersecurity?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I think what I always tell people is make a goal to do something like this weekend or this month, whatever it is that you've been putting off. Is it going finding a meetup in your town that you can go to this month? Is it going to go try out that new lab this weekend? Make a goal, do something, and that's how you get there is by making a goal like each week or each month. You can do it. You can get there.
Awesome. Great advice. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks.
Bye.